Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. It's Thursday night. That means it's time for DRS. Tonight, we're in Canada, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Looking at a track distance of 4.3 kilometers, top speeds of 340 kilometers an hour, 35 laps for the 50% race, around 14 turns, and almost no elevation to speak of. This is the penultimate round. One more to go after this. Season 10, round 7. Welcome to the viewers that are already on the stream early on. Of course, remember at DRS we run a full qualifying session. I don't think we have more than 15 runners, so this first, there we go, thank you Panda giving us an update. It's just going to be the short quali session tonight, so back to the more familiar format on this channel. And that means that this qualifying session is going to be a lot busier than I thought it would be. Usually guys just scroll around in Q1, but they're not going to have that privilege tonight. You're going to have to get out there just the 18 minutes. And Panda just giving confirmation dry race. Obviously, if you watched the other races on the channel this week, we did tier 1 and tier 2 of SAFRL. That was on F124. This is F123. In those two races we had no safety cars, but we know that the 23 version of this game really likes its safety cars. This is also Canada, so safety cars definitely a possibility. Got our first few drivers now out on outlap. Zubair, Will, Panda was in the comment section not so long ago. Now he's on track. Nick Gishin also out on track. You see him usually leaving things very, very late, but not this time round. Straight out on the circuit. That's the difference a short quali makes. There's just so much more urgency, so much more at risk. Can't just sit back. Got to get on with it. No lap times yet from the drivers. And if you've just joined us, remember just the short quali session tonight, so this will form your grid order. This is Zubair going to start his first lap. It's close to the wall of champions, but not as close as you can. Don't want to risk everything just yet. That wall of champions has changed though. It's a little further back. It used to be just sheer concrete. Now lots of tech pro. This is Zubair. The Williams. Lots of talk about Williams, who's going to take Logan Sargent's seat. And at the moment, everything is pointing towards Carlos Sainz. Zubair to the slowest part of the circuit, slowest corner on the circuit, the casino hairpin, and up the long back straight. Got to worry about your braking point, getting this right. Don't want to jump the curbs and validate the lap. There goes over the line, goes up into P2 or P1, no surprise. Nick Gishin leads the way, 110.4. Next best lap is Panda, it's a 111.6, so quite a gap there on the front row, but still lots of drivers coming through yet to do their first run. This is Mondi. He's on the move, on a quick lap. Now almost everybody out on circuit, it's a very busy race circuit. Zero to Cool. His teammate also out on track, so both Alfa Romeos. Esotronic, the only McLaren here this evening. We've got a caution that could be someone going slowly or someone going off track. And there we see past, just flies past some slow moving traffic. And it's so important in this session, even more than in the full quali. So you've got a little bit more time in the full quali. It's just so important not to get caught up in traffic. You need to make every single lap count. So far just the 5 drivers went over the line, set a timed lap. I don't think Cowboy's lap was, I think he must have tapped off. Nick Gishin, Levy, Zero to Cool. We said those 2 Alphas were out on track while they went P2, P3. That would be a fantastic result if the checkered flag were to fall now. Mondi and Kurbis, the 2 Aston Martins. Kurbis on an out lap. Mondi on his quick lap. Obviously, the Montreal circuit, it's on a man-made island. It was originally built for an expo in the 80s, I believe. And it's not that unique. On that very river, there's another 2 or 3 of these islands. Mondi gonna go over the line. We'll see what his first time lap will be. Ooh, I think he must have been invalidated because he was on a quick lap. Maybe, I think if he backed out of it, he would have still had a slow lap time, so that must have been invalidated. Citronic approaching now, Wall of Champions. What lap time is he gonna get in now? No lap time just yet. Still no lap time. Bring up some data. Don't think there's going to be any surprises in the tyres column. Citronic just got that track layout is completely red, so I'm guessing it's an invalidated lap. This is the Aston Martin still looking for his first time lap. This is Mondi. He'll want to get himself comfortably in the top 10. Gets himself up into P7 at 111.9. Who's still out on track looking for a lap time? Esotronic, Twister and Boinkies. No lap times from them, but Boinkies is sitting in the pits. For some drivers, if they feel they have the pace to be out there in the front, they may feel the need to maybe save an extra set of tyres. While the guys towards the back, they'll be using every single set they have. Nick Gishin looking for an improvement. If he's able to hold the last part of the lap together, I'm sure he's going to find one, because he was purple in sector 2. He does find an improvement. How much? Current best 110.4, does a 110.2, finds himself another 2/10. Quibus now P2, not far behind, 10.6, Levy 10.7, and there's a bit of a drop after the top three, 11.2 the next best. So we got the top three drivers covered by half a second, and then you have to go another half second back to get to P4. Wankies, he is emerging from the pits now. He's going to be under pressure to get that first lap. Just 9 minutes remaining in the session, so that means we're halfway through Q1. Of course, it's called Q1, but it's the only Q there is. This is short quali. This is Nick Gishin. He'll be heading off into the pits. He had a successful defense of that lap, and obviously there's still time to have another run, or even two if he wanted. Got out there very, very early on the initial run. This is Panda. In the Alpha Tauri. Very confusing. I was commentating on RBs last night. Now it's back to Alpha Tauris. Nick Gishin in the pits, P2 Quibus also in the pits, Levy P3 on an out lap. It's actually just started a quick lap. The guys have been switching back and forth between 23 and 24. One recommendation, don't forget this isn't 24, and don't abuse that battery. It takes a little bit longer to charge up in this game. And before you can be that little bit more aggressive on the battery, because it's quite easy to replenish. This is Levy looking for something better. He's currently half a second away from provisional pole. He's at the lead of the second row. Wants to make the step up onto the front row. Preferably pole, but he comes into the pits. So he went out for a lap, returned to the pits immediately, so that lap obviously wasn't going as planned. This is 0 to cool in the Alfa Romeo. Also returning to the pits. Every time I mention a driver, he drives into the pits. This is Kev, and he's probably going to drive into the pits. Yes, he does. There we go. This is Zubair, but he seems to be going very slowly, maybe winding up for a lap. Area Mondi, currently P9, 111.9. Drivers at the front, of course, in the 1 minute 10s. Top 5 drivers in the 1 minute 10s. Just the 13 runners this evening, so starting from the rear of the field won't be the end of the world. Canada is a circuit with lots of overtaking opportunities, strong DRS zones. This is Will in the only Ferrari, and he comes into the pits. I better stop mentioning drivers by name, because at this point I think they're doing it on purpose. This is SAFRL. He's at the rear of the field at the moment. Needs to get his first lap time in. And that is his first lap time, but I think he must have backed out of that. It's a 1:17.0. Nick Gishin getting wheeled back. No, that's a Ferrari getting wheeled back into the pits. It's currently best time 1:10.6. That would be a fantastic lap. If it weren't for the Alpine up the road. 110.4.2, sorry. So he's going to have to find another 4 tenths if he wants to go up into provisional pole. There's still 4 minutes remaining. Nikishin will still come out and defend that lap time. Kurbis 110.6, still the best time. His battery's charged up. That means this is his quick lap. He's been winding up for it. This will be his final attempt of the evening. Just over 3.5 minutes remaining. Getting really close to the walls, wanting to use all of the racetrack, but when you go over that little bit of a limit, everything can end very quickly. Asitronic also just retiring from the session, so he'll be starting from the rear of the field. Cowboy also retired earlier on, so he'll be starting P12. Aston Martin. Kurbis comes to the end of his lap. Is he able to improve it to 110.6, his current best? Goes over the line, does improve, and it's a 110.4. Needed to find himself 4 tenths, found himself 2 tenths. Means he's a little bit closer, but it's not enough. Nikishin is on an outlap. Kurbis not going to be able to get back in and have another go, so that'll be his evening. Of course, it's not guaranteed a second place. Still a lot of quick drivers behind him looking to improve. Levy is one of those drivers. He's in the early stages of his quick lap, currently in Sector 1. Does go quicker in Sector 1, finds 2 tenths on his current best. Currently set him up for a 110.5 if he keeps this lap together, or will he find more in Sector 2? Any little bit of an improvement, he finds another 2 tenths in Sector 2. Now this straight, nothing complicated about this straight. What's complicated is that hairpin. You really need to get an optimal exit so you can get the optimal top speed down this straight, and then start to worry about your braking point. When are you going to turn in? It goes over the line, does improve, does go on to the front row of the grid. It's a 110.3, very close, just a tenth of a second away, but a tenth too far. Welcome to everyone who's watching. If you're not in the cockpit of a car, get on the keyboard, say hello, let me know you're here. There we go, just got an Alpine taking a very serious shortcut. It's Nick Gishin, currently on provisional pole. Had a caution on this track for a long time. I can't see how much time is remaining in the session because that caution just won't go away. The AlphaTauri of Panda, currently in P4, 110.9. If he were to find an improvement, he'd have to find an entire half a second, and you can just see there on the exit of the hairpin, just got a little bit out of shape. And that's what I was talking about on the previous lap. So there's nothing complicated about this straight. What's important about this straight is getting the exit of the hairpin absolutely correct. Panda's going to go over the line now. Let's see if he does improve. Stays at a 110.9 and he stays in P4. Zero to cool now approaching the hairpin himself. Currently a 110.9 just behind Panda. Those times almost identical, just 200ths of a second between the two. He wouldn't have to find much to get himself onto the second row. Where is Nick Gishin? He's about to go over the line and he improves again. Not by much, still a 110.2. But it always feels good to see your name up there in purple. Obviously just the one quali session, so these are your final results. This will be your grid order. Nick Gishin, he's going to start from pole position and he's going to be joined on the front row by Levy. Then on the second row we've got Kurbis and Zero to Cool. Third row Panda and Zubair. Then P7 Ariamondi, followed by Boinkies, Fuster and Will to make up the top 10. Outside the top 10 with a bit of work to do, Cowboy knocking on the door, P11, then Esotronic and Kev did not set a lap time, showing their DSQ. Canada is also a circuit we've seen many times on this channel before that can really rack up the penalties. If you get a bit careless in the chicanes, very easy to ride those curbs, and sometimes you just take a little too much. Monday night, Wednesday night we had a formation lap. Don't expect a formation lap tonight. Should be underway as soon as we see the cars on the start finish line. There we go, the red lights. It's going to be 5 of them. They're all going to go out and then we're all going to get underway. It's an Alfa Romeo versus an Alpine into turn 1, and how many times have we said that this season? Nick Gishin into turn 1 and he comes out of turn 1 in the lead. That's the important part. Levy P2 is followed by his teammate closely, Zero to Cool. Then we have the two Williams, Zubair and Boinkies, P4 and P5. Panda, P6, Ariamondi and Kurbis, the two Aston Martins, 7 and 8. A lot of the teammates running line astern, as are the two Mercedes, P11 and 12. Both of them just outside the points at the moment. Very early stages, it's lap 1 and everybody's still buzzing left and right looking for positions. This is obviously the best time to make up positions because everybody's so close together. And if somebody makes a mistake at the front, and you can put your car in the right area and not get damaged, you can make up a lot of positions very early on. Just have a look at some of these position changes at the start of the race. Zero to Cool making up a position. Zubair made up 2, as did his teammates. A good start for both Williams drivers. Kev, real winner of the day so far. He's made up 5 positions since the start of the race. As for your tyres, see there's just really 2 ideas up in the air. Some of the drivers have gone on the medium, some of the drivers have gone on the hard, but the vast majority have gone on the medium. Just 4 drivers on the hard, I'm guessing, but I think these drivers are going to be all attempting 1-stops. Of course, if there are safety cars and other variables like that, then we will get further pit stops as drivers start to roll the dice. But if this is a start to finish race without any safety cars, without any interruptions, I think most of these drivers will be looking at a 1-stop. Now Levy, long before DRS arrives, he's able to get past Nick Gishin and go into the lead of the race. It's not going to be easy tonight for Nick Gishin. Challenge has been thrown down. Levy in the lead. Now Nick Gishin coming under pressure from another Alfa Romeo. He'll be feeling a bit of deja vu. A lap ago he looked in his mirrors, saw an Alfa Romeo. An Alfa Romeo just went past him. Looks in his mirrors and guess what? There's an Alfa Romeo. So he's in an Alfa Romeo sandwich at the moment. Zubair in P4, keeping a close eye on the activity just ahead of him. He knows a mistake by one of those drivers and he needs to capitalize. Panda has fallen adrift a little bit from the top 4. He's in P5. Boinky's not far behind, followed by one of the Aston Martins, Aria Mondi. The other Aston Martin down in P12, he's lost a few positions. At the front, it's Lebby. He's got a 6/10 gap, so not much of a gap, but I think the tyres explain it. Lebby on the medium, Nick Gishin on the hard. So two very different strategies for the drivers in P1 and 2. Obviously, the short story of that is Lebby is going to finish the race on hards, and Nick Gishin would probably be wanting to finish the race on mediums. So in the first stint of the race, Lebby's going to have the faster tyre. In the second stint of the race, Nick Gishin's going to have the faster tyre. So if he's able to deal with the mediums at this point, I don't think he's going to have a problem with the hards later on. Nick Gishin back into the lead of the race. Says, I'll take that back. Obviously started in pole position, led for the first few corners, then Lebby got past. Now he's retaken that position, gone back into the lead of the race. Lebby into P2 with his teammate not far behind, just half a second down the road. Zubair in P4, falling into a bit of a gap now. It's got some free air. Panda already on his own on lap 5. Sometimes you find a space on the race circuit where the driver ahead of you is that little bit quicker, so he's just disappearing, but you're a little bit quicker than the driver behind you too, so you just find yourself in this bubble. You've got free air ahead of you and no one really in your mirrors that's too threatening. At the front though, no gaps have formed just yet. Lebby has gone back to the lead of the race. That's a fantastic helicopter shot. I wish I could control it and bring it on whenever I pleased, but then you'd probably see too much of the helicopter shot. Second Alfa Romeo there, just jumping the chicane, not able to get the car stopped in time. Nick Gishin thought about going up the inside, and I thought he was going to back out of it, but he got that done. Nick Gishin back into the lead of the race, and somehow the Alfa Romeos have also switched positions. Side by side again, now 0 to cool. We've got 3 cars here at the front, and we've got damage. Lebby coming into the pits early. He's got damage. That explains why the Alfa Romeo swapped positions. Just got damage there in the hairpin. We don't know who the contact was with. Is there any damage to these 2 cars? 3-second penalty for multiple warnings. That's for 0 to cool. So in the very early stages of this race, we already have penalties popping up on our screen. One thing we know about Nick Gishin, besides the fact that he is quick, is that he doesn't pick up that many penalties. Now, as I've said so many times before, if we have a safety car towards the end of the race, those penalties, you will curse each and every one of them. And when you think about it, it's really quite silly. When you are going over those lines, it's because you're looking for a tenth or half a tenth. But if you go over the line, it'll cost you 3 seconds, and that's going to take you, it's going to take quite a bit of work to get back. Nick Gishin and Zero to Cool swapping positions yet again. So Nick Gishin led the race on lap 1 from pole position. Levy was able to get past for the end of that lap. He led briefly before Nick Gishin retook the lead of the race. Those two swapped positions another 2 or 3 times. Then Zero to Cool led the race briefly, and now Nick Gishin has retaken the lead of the race. And unfortunately for the other Alfa Romeo, there he is. He's going so well, definitely had the pace, but now he's going to have a rethink about his strategy going forward. He's got a set of hards on those tyres, so he's going to be looking to go as deep as possible. I'm not sure if he can go to the end of the race. I think that would be quite an extreme stretch. Nick Gishin back into P2. These two just so close together that every time they open up DRS, a pass is almost guaranteed. Ariamondi coming under some serious pressure. He's now in P3, got promoted by that incident involving the Alfa Romeo. He's got another 2 cars close behind him. Needs to be on it. Otherwise these two will definitely pounce. Boinky's P4 coming under all sorts of pressure. You can see the Haas there. The Haas goes towards the inside. The Williams does not let that go. Very brave driving. Fantastic driving. Williams staying in P4. James Vowles would be thrilled. Ooh, we have our first retirement. We've got a caution flashing on our screens. Hopefully that's not what I think it is. It's caution sector 2, sector 3. Now it's just sector 3, but we've had a DNF. It's Panda. It becomes the first retirement of the evening. That's the AlphaTauri, and it was the only AlphaTauri here this evening, so no points for AlphaTauri in the penultimate race. Luckily for us, it did not trigger a safety car. If we do get a safety car in the race, it's always more exciting to have that safety car towards the end. Of course, if you find yourself towards the rear of the field, you'd love an early safety car. Some people like them, some people don't. When you have a race without safety cars, well then the driver's pace just shows. Drivers who are naturally quicker, they go further and further forward. The drivers at the pack go further and further back, and by the end of the race, you've got gaps everywhere. I'm focusing on this battle because this battle refuses to gap. Again, Nick Gishin back into the lead of the race. Zero to Cool down into P2. Boinkies is now in P3. Will he be able to do anything about that gap ahead of him? 6.7 seconds up to the top two. He's going to have to shake off the likes of Ariamondi and Kev before he can worry about those 2 cars up the road. Will in the sole Ferrari. He's doing a good job. Solid P6 at the moment. He's got no one ahead of him, and he's got no one behind him. All alone in this race for the time being. He'll be waiting for the first pit stop window so he can start seeing some other competitors again. Citronic making a move on the other Williams. That's Zubair. Zubair now in P10, holding on to the last point. And Fuster in the Mercedes, he wants that last point. But Zubair is lining up a pass, thought about it, tucks in behind the McLaren, and now the Mercedes getting involved. Ooh, that was close. Front wing got so close to the diffuser. Every piece of aerodynamics is so incredibly important, but at a track here like Canada with quick chicanes where you really need to be able to change direction quickly, all you need to do is lose one of those end plates. Look at this. I almost thought they were going to go 3 into the chicane, but Zubair gets himself up into P9, doubles his points tally from 1 to 2. Now Nick Gishin is leading this race, but not quite sure what happened further back. 0 to Cool. He's lost a lot of time. He's now still in P2, but he's 7.8 seconds adrift from the leader. Those two cars were so close together, so must have had some sort of off-track excursion. Let's just look at that front wing. He's coming into the pits. He's coming into the pits. Something has not... I don't think that was a planned stop. So now both Alfa Romeos have been in the wars. I think he's going to actually come out just behind his teammate, so the Alfa Romeos will be reunited. Where's the other Alfa Romeo? And there we go. Not quite close together, but about 2 seconds apart. So the Alfa Romeos ran in P2 and P3 and actually both had a chance to lead the race. Now find themselves down in P6 and 7. They'll be hoping for some drama in this race so that they can come back into it. Both those Alfa Romeos already had penalties, so that wasn't really going for them. So close to Nick Gishin, so close to the leader, but you've got penalties next to your name. So you're really only close to the viewers, to the spectators, but on the timesheet, really nowhere near each other. Nick Gishin leads the way, 8.1 seconds, very comfortable gap now. Kev up into P2. Boinkies looking for a podium here this evening. That would be a fantastic result for the penultimate race of the season. So when DRS does return, it's going to return on F124. New season, slate wiped clean, everybody starts again from 0 points. We know new seasons are always exciting, especially when they're on a new game. Saw full grid for the first time in quite some time on this channel on Monday night. 20 cars, and they competed in a short quali, so it was quite a busy quali. Two drivers, P1 and 2, Nick Gishin and Kev, separated by 8 seconds, but crucially, both those drivers, no penalties. That is not the case for the drivers in P3, 4, 5 and 6, all of those drivers with penalties. So not only do you have to drive out of your skin to come back into this race, you're going to have to do that a little bit more to cover for the mistakes you've made. Gap is coming down at the front ever so slightly. That gap was, I think, at 8.7 seconds at a stage. Now it's 7.7 seconds. So Kev has been able to pull 1 second back on the leader. Of course, we don't know what either one of these drivers are doing. If Kev is pushing to the limit, if Nick Gishin is trying to preserve his tires, we don't know who's doing what, but from the timing sheet, Seems like Nick Gishin is making up some time. Kev is making up some time, sorry, but I think Nick Gishin might be listening to the commentary because he's responding. Gap back up to 8.1 seconds, just found another 4/10. So I think he is still very much in control as Satronic picks up a penalty. Let's just briefly bring up the penalty screen, because there are a lot of penalties. Nothing seems to be racked up too high, just Esotronic with the double penalty, so he's got 6 seconds. Then for the other penalties in this race, Boinky, Slebby, Zeratakul, Will, Fuster and Zubair, they're currently on 3 seconds apiece. To the tyre screen, everybody's either on a set of hards or on a set of mediums, and what is that? Got a safety car. Don't know what that was, but it looked like carbon fiber flying around at the bottom of our screens. There's a car in the wall, and that is a Mercedes, I believe. It's a Mercedes, it's Cowboy. Cowboy has DNF from this race, and he's given us our first safety car. Crucially, for the leader, that safety car came out when the leader was on that back straight, approaching the pit entry. So he was able to respond very quickly, get into the pits. Everybody else will be driving around at that safety car speed while he was coming into the pits. So he's actually going to gain a little bit of time. Of course, it's a safety car, everyone will close up yet again. So all the gaps that have been built up, all the work that's been done, it gets cancelled out. We're not quite at halfway race distance. But if you do have penalties next to your name, this is the worst case scenario for you. That is not the problem for the top three. Top three have no penalties next to their names. Safety cars, not only on the game but also in real life, are a much more common occurrence than they used to be, especially in the 90s and early 2000s. So what would happen occasionally is you get a driver coming over from Indy who would just embarrass the Formula One drivers on restarts. Because, well, IndyCar drivers only know how to do a rolling start. Example of that, Juan Pablo Montoya at Interlagos. The safety car restart got an aggressive pass on Michael Schumacher into the Senna S's. And when he was asked about his amazing restart, he said he had done it that many times. Many times in the 90s, safety car wouldn't come out for, if the car was deemed to be in a safe place, they just leave it there. Sometimes it would sit next to the barrier for the remainder of the race. You just see it lap after lap. They just leave the car there. Obviously things are a lot more strict these days. A lot of that also has to do with the safety car incident with Jules Bianchi. Of course, if you go further back in time, scenarios get even scarier. In the 70s, there was no safety car, and I'm not quite sure of the Grand Prix. Might have been 78. Maybe it was, I think it was 78. Huge accident. Not really big accident, but car came to a standstill on the main straight, and there was no marshal on that side of the track. So a marshal sprinted across the track with a fire extinguisher. And well, if you don't know how that ended, you should probably Google it. was one of the worst fatal accidents ever in Formula One. I think the driver was Tom Price. As the marshal ran across the track to help the parked driver, another driver came flying down the straight. Fire extinguisher unfortunately hit the driver in the helmet. And as for the marshal, I can't even tell you. I don't know. You can watch that replay as many times as you want. It almost looks like he disappears. So that was the double fatal accident at Kyalami in the 70s. Kyalami obviously was a very, very different race circuit back then. In fact, it wasn't even quite where it is now. The original layout is technically in Kyalami Business Park, just next to the track. Montreal, one of the tracks on the calendar that's been a staple for pretty much as long as I've been watching the sport. And with really no differences that I can think of. This track layout is pretty much the same ever since I've watched F1. Now the safety car pulling off into the distance, you saw that immediately as Nick Gishen just got on the brakes. That's him already backing up the field. He's going to back this field up as much as possible, and then he's going to keep Barry Amondi behind him, guessing when is he going to go. Is he going to go just before the final chicane? Is he going to go just before the start finish line? Don't really know, but he's gone already. Nick Gishen gets the jump on the field. Went a lot earlier than I think Gary Amondi would have expected. The gap going into turn 1 is going to be just under a second. So Nick Gishen gets the jump on the field. Gary Amondi in P2. He's also got a nice jump on P3, almost a second down to Boinkies. Then we've got Lebby, Kurbis and Will, followed by Zero to Cool, Puster, Kev and Zubair. We've only got 10 drivers left in this race, so if you're able to get to the checkered flag, you'll pick up some points. I haven't heard from Panda in the comment section. He retired a little earlier on. If you're watching, let me know what happened. At the front, Nick Gishen, no problems there. He's got 1.5 seconds, 1.6 seconds advantage over P2, Ariamondi. Wasn't looking at a podium earlier, but the race has really come back to him nicely. Now Lebby, he would have been grateful to that safety car because he was able to come into the pits, get a new set of tyres. He's got a new set of mediums on the car. And he's back up into P3, and where he was very far away from the podium positions, well, now he's technically just 2.5 seconds away from the leader. So a race that looked like it had gone seriously south is now entering those possibilities of a victory again. As for his teammate, Zero to Cool, also so strong in the opening stages of the race, he also had a bit of bad luck. He's still down in P6. I think what might have happened to those Alfa Romeos, I can't be sure because I wasn't looking at them at the time, but I wonder if both those Alfa Romeos came into the pits under safety car, and unfortunately they were too close to each other on track, which means the one behind would have had to wait for the double stack. And that would explain why the one is in P3 and the other is in P6. He had to just sit there in the pits while cars drove past him. Looking for a battle. Here is a battle. Lebby versus Ariamondi. 0.2 of a second is the gap. Nick Gishen sets the fastest lap of the race. But the action is here for P2. DRS enabled after the safety car. Levy will be happy to open that rear wing again, attack the Aston Martin, get himself back up into P2 where he spent quite a portion of the race. Don't know if he would have thought he'd be back up into P2 this quickly. Not quite there yet. Needs to get past Ariamondi. He will want to do it quickly because he's getting himself into an Aston Martin sandwich. Those two cars could work together to really give him a hard time. So he wants to get past Ariamondi before Curvis arrives on his diffuser. Just to bring up some stats, we can have a look at the battery. And there we go, Levy gets through easily before the chicane, goes up into P2. Is he going to be able to shake off the Aston Martins? Is he going to be able to close this gap to Nick Gishen, this 3.7 second gap? Is he going to be able to come back and challenge? We saw in the opening stages he definitely had the pace to challenge, but that was within DRS. He's going to have to close this gap all on his own without any assistance. Good news for him is he has been able to shake off the Aston Martins. The gap there now 1.5 seconds, so he doesn't have to worry about DRS behind him. Just needs to worry about closing the gap ahead of him. Gap 3.4 seconds, so it is coming down. Came down 0.3 of a second in the matter of half a lap. And Levy sets the fastest sector 2 of the race, so he's definitely on the move. Look there, 3.1 seconds, 3 seconds, so the gap really coming down and coming down quickly. He's left those two Aston Martins behind. Ariamondi getting passed now by his teammate. Curbis up into P3 as the Aston Martins switch positions. Ariamondi another position down, now into P5, 0 to cool. Making his way into the top 4. And if he can clear that second Aston Martin, well, Alfa Romeo would have gone from P2 and 3, where they both had incidents, back to P2 and 3. Couldn't ask for a better result. Only 2 drivers in the field do not have penalties. So look at the penalty screen. Levy 3 seconds, then we also have 3 seconds for 0 to cool, Ariamondi, Boinkies, Kev and Will. Then a little bit more than that, we've got 9 seconds now for Zubair and 8 seconds for Fuster. It's going to be one of those scenarios where I'm going to have to wait for those official results, because I'm not even going to try and read out the results with this amount of penalties. Cars are just going to be flickering up and down. Nick Gishen comfortably in the lead there, 3.2 seconds, so he has been able to respond. That gap went into the 2-second mark, and now he's pulling it back a little bit. Assuming all the drivers are looking to finish on their current compound. So Nick at the front will also just be thinking about tyre management. Doesn't want to put too much into the tyres and then driving around on utter rubbish for the last 2 or 3 laps. He still have grip at the end in case he needs it, in case he finds himself in a battle at the end. But he's going to have that serious advantage of not having any penalties. Because one thing we don't know is how many warnings drivers have, how close they are to that penalty. Boinkies was on a podium position not so long ago. The safety car will have dampened his mood a little. Raimondi picks up a 3-second time penalty, so that's just going to get added to his time. I believe he's going to go up to 6 seconds. So for the most part, all the battles you're seeing here on track, they're not really happening on the timesheet. Lap 25 of 35, 10 laps to go. 3.1 seconds the gap at the front. 0 to cool, a further 2.9 seconds back in P3. And just outside the podium we've got Boinkies P4, Gobus P5, then Kev. Ariamondi was in a much stronger position not so long ago. He's now down in P7. He's lost a few positions, falling down the order. Pusto, one of the drivers with extensive penalties next to his name. I believe he's up to 8. That will have been 1 track infringement for corner cutting and 1 pit lane infringement, probably for speeding. I'm sure all of these drivers have been playing F124, but if they haven't been playing enough of it, please keep in mind that in F124 that 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane is no longer a 5-second penalty. It's a 10-second penalty. This is the horse. Really love the helicopter shot. Fortunately, we can't hold on to it for a little longer. Gap at the front now starting to grow. So it looked like Levy was reeling him in. But now Nikishin has responded. He's actually starting to pull away a little. 0 to cool, not able to do too much about his teammate. That gap still 2.8 seconds. Oinky's 1.7 seconds adrift from the podium. Every driver in the top 6 is on the medium compound of tyres, so there shouldn't be any real tyre advantage. The only minimal advantage I could see is Kevin P5 has a slightly fresher set than the drivers around him. Tyres might feel a little better in the final 2 or 3 laps of the race than the cars around him. Super just set the fastest lap of the race from the back of the field. Currently in P10. Gets the fastest lap of the race, but that's on a brand new set of softs. It's the best time to be on a set of softs. It's at the end of a race when the car is as light as it's going to be, and you're able to just throw that car around aggressively, and especially if you don't have that many laps to go, and you don't have to worry about the tire management on those softs. Really just throw it around and have some fun. Of course, there's only 10 drivers, so if you do get the fastest lap, you get an extra point. What usually works is get an extra point for fastest lap if you're in the top 10. You lose out if you're not. But tonight, you only have the 10 remaining drivers, and as I say that, that's a commentator's curse. I just said we only have 10 drivers. Well, we now have 9. Zubair, who just set the fastest lap of the race, retires from P10. He had a point guaranteed. He had another point guaranteed for fastest lap if he was able to hold on to it. But now he's going to go home with no points. Well, he's not going to go home. He's home. But, you know. It's been a very, very, very quiet comment section. I was just enjoying the race. Nick Gishin made use of that safety car to have another pit stop, as will most of the drivers. I think everybody that has a set of softs available is going to jump onto a set of softs. Even if you don't have a new set of softs, those softs will have only done probably 3 laps in qualifying, so they will still have life on them for the remainder of this race. Remember, it's a safety car. It's still going to be another lap or 2 before we get underway, so then we're going to have probably less than a 5-lap sprint to the end. This is exactly what I warned about at the beginning of the stream. I said that this is a circuit where it's very easy to rack up the penalties, and if you have a safety car towards the end of the race, those penalties can really hurt you. So while we're under... Ooh, that's interesting. We'll get to that in a second. So while we're under safety car, let's just have a look at the penalties. And actually, the drivers that do have penalties, they're all on a 3-second penalty from what I can see. So those will technically cancel each other out. Purvis, though, in a very strong position because he does not have a penalty. Only him and Nick Gishin in that category. So he could jump the 2 cars ahead of him and take P2. What I said was interesting, and we'd get back to it later. The 2 drivers at the rear of the field, P8, P9, those are Fuster and Ariamondi. They both have drive-thrus. Now a reminder to both those drivers, you cannot do your drive-thru under safety car conditions. So they're going to have to wait until the safety car comes to an end, then come into the pits, then do their drive-thru while everybody is busy with the restart. Unfortunately, by the time they come out of the pits, there's not going to be much they can do. Unless they're battling for P8. All that's left now is to wait for a confirmation of safety car ending. Then we'll know approximately, or rather exactly, how many laps we'll have left in this race. How close is the field? We'll just, there we go, on the track map. The field is very tight, and there's your confirmation. Safety car in this lap. We're going to have a 4-lap sprint to the end. We had a stream a few weeks ago. Very similar scenario. 4-lap sprint to the end. And as the guys did the restart, there was a crash, I believe, in turn 3. Safety car came out, and we had a 1-lap race. A 1-lap race at the end. Imagine that. All the practice, all the qualifying, all of that drama comes down to a 1-lap race. Nick Gishin will have what he hopes is his final restart of the race. Goes into turn 1 in P1. But look who's just behind him. It's the driver that was challenging him for the lead of the race at the start of the race. Had an incident, went almost all the way back to the rear of the field, but now 2 safety cars have happened and everything has changed. He's in P2. Seems to have the pace to stay with Nick Gishin as he did in the early stages. The only thing against him this time around is he's got a 3-second penalty, so his only hope of winning is getting past Nick Gishin and opening up a 3-second gap. And by the evidence we've seen tonight from the pace of the Alpine, I don't really see that as a probable scenario. This stage is the Alpine's race to lose. Because even if he does get past on track, the next two drivers have penalties next to their name. So he'd have to make a serious error towards the end of the race. Levy sets the fastest lap of the race there in P2, so he's just applying the pressure. And Nick Gishin will know if he can just keep him behind for as long as possible, even if he does get past at the end, victory is certain, but he doesn't want to let him go just yet, because he might be able to open up that 3-second gap. Only Kev in P5 is running the medium compound. Everybody else on a new set of softs, or a relatively new set of softs. This is the Alfa Romeo versus the Alpine. These two looked inseparable at the start of the race, and then they were separated by virtue of an incident. Now they've been rejoined at the end of the race, reunited, but unfortunately for us, the viewers, the penalty could be what decides the race, and not the action on track. Kev picks up a 3-second penalty. Still the only two drivers out on track, Kurbis and Nick Gishin, not to have any penalties next to their name, so I think a shout out is needed to both of those drivers when the entire field gets penalties and you're the one or two drivers that don't. Good on you. Boinkies finds himself in P3 again. Oh, how he'd love to hold on to that podium, but the penalty right there next to his name. He'll be so aware of it. He'll be looking at that gap and knowing 0.8 of a second, it's not enough. Kurbis will go up into P3 and possibly even P2. Will, 3-second penalty, so guys really adding up those penalties at the end of the race. Let's just have a look. We've got 6 seconds, 6 seconds, 3 seconds, so a real mix of penalties in the field. And it's really going to jumble up that order by the time we get the official results. So don't read too much into this order. I'm not even going to try to do the mathematics of who's actually where. We're just going to let the game do that for us. So wait for the official results. What I can tell you is Nick Gishin's leading the race, and he's doing so comfortably because the cars behind him have penalties. He was leading the race. Now Levy leads the race, but only on track. Remember, 3-second penalty. So if he's going to do something, he's going to have the best final lap of his life. No way he's going to be able to open up a 3-second gap, but still feels so damn good to get to that line first. Even if you know there's a penalty there, just that getting one over on the competition. Penalty may have decided it, but I still beat you on track. And don't forget. Fantastic driving by both of those drivers, Levy and Nick Gishin. Levy had to have a very different race from Nick Gishin. He had to go to the rear of the field, fight his way back, utilize a safety car, which he did perfectly. He's done such a great job to get back to the front, but now Nick Gishin's not going to give him the pleasure of seeing the checkered flag first. gets through one final time. They're going to go over the line together, are they? And unfortunately we get that 3-second penalty, but the gap would have been 3.5 hundredths of a second. Incredibly close between these two drivers, and I really wish Levy didn't have that penalty. Result would have been the same because Nick Gishin did get over the line first. It was just 3 hundredths of a second. Now we just await those official results so we can see who's slotted into where. There we go, there's your official results. Nick Gishin takes the victory. Levy goes P2 and takes the fastest lap, so he'll pick up 19 points on the evening. Boinkies was able to hold on to his P3. Quibus, P4. Nice job though, no penalties next to his name. Then we've got Zeritzpool, Kev, Will, Fuster, Ariamondi and Zubair making up the top 10 and also making up your field. Not finishing tonight, but Esotronic, Cowboy and Panda. Of course, now we ask the top 3 drivers and the driver of the day if they would like, it's not compulsory, but we've been doing it in SKR, we've been starting to do it this week in SAFRL. So if the top 3 drivers and the driver of the day would like to join me in the comms box, you can go over to the NFR server on Discord and just join the cooldown room, and I'll pick you up from there. So while we wait to see if anybody decides to go into the cooldown room, I wanna thank all the viewers. We had I think we had up to 15 viewers at a time, and people came and went, but we get most of our views after the fact, after the stream. And it was a good stream tonight. Just unfortunate for all the penalties, because it could have been a very different race. Doesn't seem like anyone is joining in the cooldown room. Probably should have given the guys a heads up before the race, but hopefully that will be something that we can do from next week. We already did it in SKR last week, and it's something we're trying to introduce into the other leagues as well. So a reminder to the drivers, if you are listening, next time around, if you finish in the top 3, if you're driver of the day, join me, join the cooldown room. We'll bring you in, we'll ask you a couple of questions, how the race went, and yeah. So I want to thank all the viewers that watched live with me this evening, and I want to thank all the viewers that are going to watch this either later on tonight or later on in the week, or when they're supposed to be at work. Until Sunday for SKR, thank you very much, and cheers.